DNR, do not resuscitate. What is it? A DNR instructs medical and emergency personnel not to do CPR or other life-sustaining treatments when your heart stops beating. In a hospital and in a care home or a skilled nursing facility, a DNR requires a doctor's signature to be valid. At home, though, you can actually sign a DNR and it will be an instruction to different emergency personnel in your home. A little bit more on dealing with a DNR at home in just a moment. First, a little bit more about what is a DNR. When you want to complete it. The DNR is most relevant when someone is close to the end of their life, or when they have a condition with no hope for recovery, or when a body is frail, or facing serious medical complications, and when the recovery from CPR would actually be too impactful that it would be hard for somebody to recover. So you want to have a DNR in place so that they don't have to deal with CPR in the first place, and they won't have to deal with the effects of recovery. Something that's really important to note is you actually have to have sufficient mental capacity to complete your DNR and for it to be considered valid. If there's a challenge on whether or not somebody actually has mental capacity, it can both interrupt the implementation of a DNR and also just cause serious consequences for the loved ones who are left behind, who may be challenged by a doctor or by other relatives or people just surrounding the person who has a DNR. And that can be a challenge that nobody wants to have to go through. It can drag you into the courts and it can get really messy. So if you want to actually have a DNR and you want it to be recognized, then it should be accompanied by a bracelet or a necklace. And the reason for that is because the emergency personnel will be looking at a person, right away. Before they start doing anything, they start searching for medical ID bracelets or necklaces to give them further information about things that they need to take into consideration before they start doing anything. If you're at home and you want the DNR to be recognized, you should post it by your bedside or on the refrigerator. I know the refrigerator sounds weird, but it's actually something that emergency services have come to know is a really common location for a DNR, and so they will look there if they are called. Also, if you're somebody who travels a lot or who actually has to be in more than one medical facility for whatever reason, you can register a DNR online with the Living Will Registry. I'll put a link in the PDFs so you can just take a look there. So that way it's accessible anywhere by any doctor or physician or emergency personnel. Now let's talk a moment about what emergency personnel are doing when they are called. Their entire reason for existing is to save people. That's what they do. And so generally, emergency personnel go into automatic pilot when you call 911. Everything about the system, their training, their orientation is entirely on getting in there and saving the person. That's why they got into the job in the first place. And for many, it's not even just a job, it's a calling. So I'm sure you may have heard stories about DNRs getting ignored, and that's because doctors, emergency personnel, everybody, they are there to save people. So if you are at home and you want your DNR to actually be honored, the best thing to do is to not call emergency services in the first place. Because calling 911, it causes a cascade of rescue behavior, and that's the opposite of what's desired in a DNR. It can be really emotionally difficult, though, for people who are caregivers or for other people to just stop themselves from calling 911 when the person in question has stopped breathing or they've had a heart attack or something else is going on that is actually causing them distress, like physical distress, and it looks like they're dying right in front of you, and that's actually exactly what's going on. It can be really, really emotionally hard to not do what we've all been trained to do, which is to call 911. But if you want a DNR to be honored and you're at home, then the best thing to do is to not call at all and to just stay present with a person who is going through things and to just allow them to naturally die, because that is what the DNR is designed for, and that's what they have actually want. Now, if you're somebody who has a DNR and you're going to be dying at home and you have this expectation for the people around you, make sure you talk it through with them and that you have them totally on board with taking this approach of not calling 911 in the first place, so that they are very clear that it's what you wanted and that everybody around them is also very clear. Otherwise, it's just way too hard. So DNR is not to be taken lightly. It's something that is really great for people who are close to the end of life and who don't want to have to deal with the aftermath of life-sustaining treatments like CPR. But it's not necessarily relevant for somebody who may actually have a good chance of recovering from CPR. So think about a DNR before you sign it, but it also can be a very useful tool in certain situations.